Hi, everyone. Hello, hello, and welcome to Preparing for the Perfect Postdoc, or some alliteration such as that. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lori Conlin, and I run the postdoc office in the Career Center here for the OITE. I'm really happy that you guys all could come and join us for our first event as part of Postdoc Appreciation Week, which is part of the National Postdoc Association has put that together. Here at the NIH, we call it Fellows Appreciation Week because we know we have people who are ERDAs, CERTAs, visiting fellows, research fellows, etc. So clinical fellows. So we celebrate all of you. And if you're interested in all the other things that are kind of happening this week as part of Fellows Appreciation Week, there's a virtual game night tonight being run by Felcom. Tomorrow, the National Postdoc Association has a virtual networking event with former postdocs. The running club is getting going, the Postdoc Running Club. The National Postdoc Association is also having a career planning workshop. OITE, that's us, is having Thriving Thursday, Jumpstart Your Fall. So making sure all your planning and your goals are ready to go. As well as later on that afternoon, 3 o'clock on Thursday, we'll do a quick little yoga class, about 40 minutes. Visiting Fellow Group is taking a hike over the the weekend, sorry. And there's a scavenger hunt option available on all campuses, a step challenge, so how many walking steps can you get? And all campuses are celebrating. So I know if you're at NIEHS, Tammy Collins has stuff for you. If you're up at NIA or NIDA, they have stuff for you. Frederick has stuff, RML has stuff. So please, please, please get out there and make sure you know how much we all appreciate you. So thank you all. The running club is actually we have, the running club meets all the time. I think it meets weekly? I don't remember. I'm going to say weekly, Anna, but I'm not 100% sure. But they meet quite often. The running club meets often. The visiting fellows take a hike quite often. And every Monday is virtual game night, from what I understand. So if you want to get together and meet more postdocs, that's one thing. And that's one of the things about being successful as a postdoc is really the community. And we'll talk about community a little bit later, but one thing that happens with community as a postdoc is it's usually the first time you've ever started without a cohort. And so finding connections can be really difficult. And additionally, now some of you have started during a pandemic, which makes it all the more harder. So I hope you take advantage of some of these events that happen over the next week to kind of get to know more people around campus. So this is a talk that I'm really excited to give. It's something that we've actually shockingly never done here at the NIH of how do you plan the perfect postdoc? Like what should you expect out of this situation? What should your PIs expect? How do you kind of chunk up your time so that you're successful while you're here and as you think about transitioning out to the next step? And I think the last one really is, we gave this talk to PIs about a year ago, not quite a year ago, actually back in the spring. I gave this talk to PIs, this exact same talk to PIs, having them think about what they want what their postdocs need to be doing as they transition from a beginning postdoc to a leaving postdoc. And I think it was kind of eye-opening for them to kind of think about it more strategically, as opposed to just my postdoc's here to get papers, right? So I really wanted to put in some thoughts that we have from the educational community about how to be successful, some things we know you need in order to transition out of the NIH, and other types of things. You guys can pop questions into the chat at any time. I'll try to keep up with them. We'll have time for question and answer at the very end. I want this to be your time. And so if you have a question, please put it out there, because I'm pretty sure you're probably not the only one that has that question. So when I think about postdoc and fellow education, what I think about is three kind of phases of that training. The first is the arrival. So when you're kind of just getting here, you're integrating into that new research group that you've chosen to join, and you're really you're really trying to make sure that both personally and professionally, this is going to be a good spot for you. You then move into the phase of the working phase. This is really trying to figure out what are you lacking in order to be able to do your job really, really well? What kind of training plans do you need to put in order to finish your science as well as get a job when you finish here? And kind of like all those nuts and bolts here in the middle that make it so that you can be really successful here. And then there's the phase of leaving. And at that point, you need guidance and support. And whether that comes from your PI or comes from someone else, it's a time period where you need someone to help read your applications, someone to help make sure that all your publications are getting tied up in nice little bows, all those kind of things. So we have 3 phases of training. So we're going to talk about what you need to do in each one of these phases of training, but it's a little more complicated than that, right? Of course, it's not just like do this, get out, right? Like there's so many other components of it. So we're going to first talk a little bit about what our goals are, and then how do you fit all the things you have to do into these 3 distinct phases and stages of training. So what do I mean by goals? And I know that each one of you has a different goal, right? Sometimes in science, one of the things that we don't do very well is set good goals. The reason is our scientific goals tend to be very, very broad, right? So for example, when I was a PhD student, my scientific goal was to understand how metal ions participate in the binding and cleavage of DNA by a restriction enzyme. That was the goal, right? That is like the largest 5-year, 6-year goal ever. And it really doesn't actually talk fully about all the things I needed to finish and accomplish as a graduate student. So there's 2 kinds of ways to think about it. The first is from what you should expect and what your goals are. And I'm sure if you guys have more goals than this, the kind of the broad goals, not the ones specific to your project, put them in the chat. If you feel like I'm missing something here, please put it in the chat. But here's what, from my recollection of being a postdoc, it wasn't that long ago. Okay, yeah, it was. This is what I think we want as postdocs. We want a relevant, decent project, something that hopefully will work with defined risks. So if it's not going to work, I want to know that it may not want to work. And I want to have another type perhaps of project that goes in parallel so that I have one risky project and one project that I know I'm going to get publications. Because all of you expect to publish while you're here. Now it's interesting because publication really depends on field, on how fast it goes, but most of you probably won't publish until at least about the end of year 2, most of you. Some of you will publish earlier, some of you will publish later, but you're probably starting to get ready to publish in about year 2. You want an appropriate level of access to your boss. Now, okay, so what does that mean? You want to be able to ask them questions. You want them to be able to bounce ideas off, both scientifically and career-wise, perhaps. You don't want them micromanaging every single thing that you do. You don't want them macro-managing where they're never, ever there. But you want to have that balance of independence with mentoring so that you feel like you're getting all the advice you need in order to be successful. You expect guidance from your PI in establishing and managing collaborations, right? So how do you set these up? How do you make sure that they go forward? How do you get the right people on board? And how do you work with others when nobody reports to each other? You expect to be included in the review process for manuscripts and grants. So when a boss gets a manuscript in and says, can you do this? You expect that your name goes on that. It's really interesting. There's a really good article this week in Science Careers about no more ghosting, ghost writing for your boss. And I know I did. I ghost wrote for my boss as a review. And it's one of the best things I did as a postdoc was review a manuscript. and learn how to do that review of a manuscript. And many of you, I know, based on seeing your CVs and resumes, is that as you get progressed into your career here at the NIH as a postdoc, the journals are asking you now, right? So as you need that experience to kind of get going, and then towards the end, many of you will be just writing those reviews as an independent researcher, so to speak. You expect and should get professional exposure. So that means that you have the ability to present at lab and branch meetings. You have the ability to present perhaps at the IC retreat, maybe the scientific interest groups, conferences, meetings, etc. Because that professional exposure, regardless of what you want to do next, helps you present your science in a different way, as well as gain contacts and networking for you to move your career forward. Again, whether you want to be a PI, industry, whatever. You expect that you will be able to mentor others, perhaps a postbac or a summer intern, and gain those supervisory skills that you're going to need as you move away from your time here at the NIH. You should expect that you'll have more than one mentor. Now, this may not be somebody who's assigned to you, right? So it could be, you have your PI, but I always had all these other secondary mentors who made it sure that that's how I succeeded in my postdoc. Like I had one person who helped me understand what it was like to be a mom and be a scientist. I had my baby when I was a postdoc. I had another person who helped me understand what science administration looked like. I had another person who really helped me with protein biochemistry because my PI was a geneticist. And so I needed that protein kineticist person to bounce ideas off because Marlene, that wasn't really her forte. None of these three people that I just talked about were tapped as my official mentor, but there were people that I talked to about my experiences and what I need and advice I needed as I went through. You expect career-focused experiences. So that means maybe you want to go into science policy. So you expect to be able to write a little bit, do more writing. If you want to go into industry, perhaps you get to talk to the industry collaborators when they come into town. If you want to be a PI, that you have the ability to perhaps take a project with you, et cetera. Because in the end, the biggest thing you should expect as a postdoc is to leave with a job, right? So at the end of this, it's a time limited term. You guys all know that. You expect to leave with a job. Now, what do your PI expect? And I think that none of this should surprise anyone. And again, if I'm forgetting something on either one of these lists, pop it into the chat. Your PI wants you to think independently and to be more independent than what a graduate student would be. They want you to lead a project to completion from start to finish, right? And maybe in the beginning there, you're getting a little bit more advice from them, but at the end, it's all yours. They expect that you will write a complete draft of a paper and that draft would be good. And so you may need to get additional writing experiences so that paper writing is not so, for me, it was torturous. Let's call it what it was. They expect that you can supervise perhaps a postbac or a summer intern or other type of staff. They really want you to ask for help when needed. And this is something when I talked to the PIs that they were very, very specific about, is that they don't want the postdoc to just continue to spin their wheels, that it's time, when it's time to ask for help, that it won't be seen as you don't know what you're doing, right? So that you should be coming up. You should be able to have good discussions about what is this project going to work or not going to work and what should you do. They want you to work well with others. They want you to bring lots of awesomeness to the research community. They want you to take feedback and adjust. And they also want you to prepare for your career. And 97% of them don't care what you do next. But they want you to be, and furthermore, they're not going to remember. Like 5 years down the road, if you chose something else, they're not going to remember. In the end, they really just want you to be happy. They really do. The human nature just wants you to be happy. So, okay, so we know what everybody expects out of this. So how do you get there? So there's three, besides the phases, right? When you arrive, the middle part, and when you're getting ready to leave, there's three domains of training. You've got your science, you've got those interpersonal skills that help you fit into the dynamics of your research group, and they have your career. So how do you take care of all these things in all these different areas? So let's kind of think about it this way, right? So when you arrive, and I don't know how long all of you have been here, but when you arrive here at the NIH, your job is to integrate, right? And so scientifically, what that looks like is it's really kind of developing your project. You're making sure that you have all the resources you need, all the reagents, all that stuff, all the data, perhaps, if you're doing a more bioinformatics type of project, and all the training that you need in order to be successful to do that. And also perhaps multiple projects with various risk levels. So at the beginning, that scientifically is really where you're kind of sitting. Then in the middle, that working phase of the stage of postdoc lifespan, you're looking at project growth. In this point, your project should be growing, things should start to work, right? You should be getting feedback from your boss about how things are going and how to change things. Building collaborations, either within your research group or external to your research group. And this is really where that visibility, right? Presenting to scientific interest groups, branch meeting, going to conferences. This is really that critical middle stage of project growth. And then towards the end, your science is really about delivery, making sure that you have papers and your papers are ready to go. You're completing everything, you're transitioning out, you're cleaning out the freezer, you're cleaning out your computer files, all those things kind of as you're finishing. We don't have very good data on how long postdocs actually stay, but my gut says it's about, the average is 4 to 6 years for most postdocs. It's usually shorter if you're going to go into industry or some other non-faculty career. And it's typically longer if you want to go, at least usually about 4 to 5 years at the minimum, if you want to go and be a faculty member. It's a little bit longer there. So great, science is awesome, right? You are here. Your goal while you're here at the NIH is to do awesome science. But additionally, you need, in my thing, 6 other things. Okay, so beyond your amazing science, you need 6 other things while you're here. You need career readiness, communication skills, teaching and mentoring skills, leadership and management skills, wellness and ethics, RCR, and knowledge of the rules. So real quick, before I continue on, I'm going to pop my slides in the chat. Dun, 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 dun. I can't talk and do these kinds of things at the same time. I can't really stop. Okay, so I'm going to put the slides in here because at the very end of this slide deck is a lot of slides about what we offer in each one of these buckets. I'm going to talk a little bit differently today. So I'm not going to read out what we offer in each one of these buckets, but suffice to say, it is in the slide deck. It's just at the very end. So you guys may be wondering, all right, Lori, this is all fine and dandy, but everyone's a faculty member, right? No, not at all. Okay, so if we did, we looked at the alumni database. The data is a little bit old, but it's statistically significant in that our data is identical to everybody else's across the nation. So the NIH as a whole, in about 2010, did a survey of the population across the board, all postdocs and where postdocs go. NIEHS, our facility down in North Carolina, did an amazingly deep data dive looking at where NIH alumni go. And I did this data dive on the alumni database that you can see. And this is the alumni database link right here. You guys all have access to this database as postdocs here. Just go in and check it out and you can see where people have gone. So when we looked at it, 39% of postdocs stayed in academic research or teaching. Of those, only 28% went on to tenure track. That's actually a pretty high number. Across the board, what we're seeing for postdocs is about 12 to 20% of postdocs will go on to a tenure track faculty career. So our data is a little bit higher, although we also count clinical fellows as part of our postdoc alumni, and many, many, many of our clinical fellows will go on to become a tenure track faculty. About 33% of you will go into some science-related non-research. We'll talk about more of that on the next slide. 14% of you will go into industry R&D, so working at Genentech or something else like that. And about 15% of you will stay in the government, specifically doing research in the government, not doing grants or FDA. That's all part of the science-related non-research. About 15% of you stay in the government. So this is literally what everybody else looks like. The only difference we have from the general population is that the number of people, postdocs that stay in government research is a little bit higher. And I think that's just because of where you all are, right? You have more access to understand what government research looks like. So many of you will become faculty members, but many of you will also do something that's science related, but non-research, kind of like what I do, right? I do science related work, but non-research. So what's that, Lori? What are these people who do science-related non-research? So there's 198 people in this particular pie chart, and it kind of goes here and goes all the way around, right? So program management and program analysis was about a quarter of the people. Policy, communications, academic affairs, that's kind of like what I do. Consulting, regulatory affairs, editing, grants, patents, project management, marketing, tech transfer. It gets harder, right? All right, tech transfer was blue. Anyway, you guys can read that. You guys are scientists. So it legit is a little bit of everything. So when I say you need to prepare for your career, what I'm thinking about is making sure that you have the ability to go in any one of these buckets. Whatever bucket you want to go into, I want to make sure that you're a competitive candidate. And how do you do that? Because it's not just your science that's going to get you there. It's all these other things that make sure, all those other 6 buckets, right? These that are going to make sure that you can make it into whatever field you want to go into. So let's talk a little bit about how to plan your buckets so that you have a successful postdoc experience. So when you arrive and you get here, and some of you I know are in that arrival and integration phase, what should you focus on? We think you should do perhaps only 4 of the buckets. And the biggest one at this particular time is making sure that you're getting all of your mandatory trainings for ethics, responsible conduct of research, and an understanding of the rules that are out there. All of you probably remember, those of you who have been here longer than 6 months, all of the mandatory trainings that you have to do, whether those are in computer with the little talking mouse or in-person trainings that you have to do. So that's a bulk of your time as you kind of get going. And remember, your science, we already talked about that. This is where you're getting your resources and your trainings for your science ready to go. Now for that wellness bucket, right? The OITE has been really passionate about wellness and resilience for our trainee population, especially as we read all the data about the mental health crisis in the biomedical research community. And so we really want to make sure that this particular point, this wellness point, is taken care of. So we want to make sure at this time, when you're arriving and integrating into a new research group, is that you're having time to settle in. You're kind of figuring out what the relationships are with your coworkers and in your research groups. You're figuring out at home how to get everybody taken care of and where the best grocery stores are, for example. It's really settling in both work and home. And if that transitions are so very, very difficult. If you're struggling with that transitions, perhaps come and talk to us so that we can help gain control over this kind of transitionary time of your life. Additionally, during this phase, I think the biggest wellness thing you can do is start to rebuild your community as you are this new individual, right? You're a postdoc now. And so rebuilding a new community of other postdocs, a home community, participating perhaps in some of our affinity groups, such as the Network of African American Fellows, the Society for the Advancement of Chicanos and Native Americans in Science, the Fellows of All Abilities, We have mom, dad docs, which is for those of you who are parents, right? There's all kinds of community. And if you don't know, if you're looking for one and you don't know where it exists, just email me and let's put you in contact with the right people. The next bucket that we think you need to work on as you arrive here at the NIH is really good communication skills. And this is really good communication skills specifically within your research group. So are you able to bounce ideas off of other scientists in your group? Can you ask for what you need? It could be a little bit of perhaps assertiveness training. If English is not your first language, perhaps you would like to come to our English communication for visiting scientist class, or take a class with FAES. So FAES has English courses, and the OITE offers a very basic English course in November and in the spring of every year. So finding ways to kind of like build your communication so that you can talk to people and understand how other people communicate, so that there's not this communication block between people. And then the last block here is really career readiness. And so what does that mean when you arrive? It's thinking about what you want to do next. Even if you think, I may want to be a faculty member, or I may want to go into science policy, I don't know yet. But knowing that you have the resources out there, and perhaps how does that influence your project? For example, if you do want to go into science policy, I'm picking on that one right now, maybe you need a project that you can complete quicker so that you can move on to go into science policy faster, right? You don't need to be there for 5 years because you can move on to that career much, much quicker. So that's the kind of things we think about when you're arriving here to the NIH. As you move into that working phase, this is where the work is the work is real, right? So the science is starting to work. You're starting to gather data. You're starting to piece together scientifically where there's holes in your story and other types of research that you want to like do there. Now it's every single one of the 6 different buckets you probably also have to work on parallel to your awesome science. So the first is, we're going to put, these are reordered based on how important we think they are at any particular stage. And I think this particular stage, the middle stage, is where wellness really kind of takes in, wellness and resiliency, and building that resilient feedback, resiliency as a scientist, right? So if giving or receiving, actually even more importantly, receiving feedback is not easy for you, and every time you and your boss talks, you feel like you're being attacked, this is time to really kind of think about resilience. We actually have a seminar about this. The series starts up again this Thursday on becoming a resilient scientist. Also, making sure you're continuing with that community, right? Building that community so that you have people that you can talk with, as this is really when science is hard, right? In the middle times. So making sure that you know how to get through those times when science isn't always working like we want it to. This is what we're really focusing on in this meantime, as well as making sure you're learning how to navigate and balance work and life, right? So that you're getting those runs in. And Anna did ask me how to find out about it. On that very first slide, there's a link to their Slack page. So if you go to the link from off of the OITE webpage, you can get to the Slack site. And I'll try to remember. And if somebody has the Postdoc Slack site, you can pop that into the chat. The next phase here, the communication, becomes more scientific-y based communication. So it's not just how do you kind of communicate with others. While that is still there, right? It's absolutely working with others and communicating across scientific boundaries is there, but it's also starting to think about making sure your writing skills and your presentation skills, presenting posters in the area, writing for a FAIR award, things like that. That's what I want you to do here in the working phase. The next phase is leadership and management. And now that you've kind of got all your, you got your science going, it's time to make sure that your leadership, management, teaching, and mentoring are getting ready to move on to the next phase. So you're prepared to be a competitive applicant, regardless of where you go. So leadership and management means managing workplace interactions, understanding how to navigate conflict, embracing diversity and the power of diversity, and maybe gaining some committee work. So this is the time where you start taking our workplace dynamics series. So it's a 3-part series, and it's really to think about how do you understand yourself, how do you navigate conflict, how do you lead teams even if you don't have power. Start in this middle phase of your time here is where you kind of do that. And it's also an amazing time to do committee work, whether that's you join FELCOM or the Fellows Association that's specific within your institute, or perhaps the trainee committees that exist within your professional societies. This committee work really is a phenomenal way for you to learn how to balance your time at work, as well as prove to hiring committees, right? So especially if you want to be a faculty member, that you can do your committee work and still do awesome science at the same time. So it's a great way to start balancing that right in the middle. And so you can get more information about all the different options at FELCOM. Here, I'll put that in the chat for FELCOM. Remember, I can't type and talk at the same time. That's the Postdoc Association here. Getting involved is a good time to do that. Teaching and mentoring, right? It's making sure perhaps you're taking that pedagogy course. This is in that middle phase. You know, we have a scientist teaching science program. It's a 9-week online course. It's absolutely free for you as postdocs. It starts up tomorrow if you're interested. Just go to the OITE webpage and check that out. This is also where you're getting additional mentors, right? Kind of like building those relationships. And as a postdoc, building those relationships for multiple mentors is so very important when it comes time to get letters of recommendation. You want people to be able to talk on your behalf. And so when you're a grad student, you would have asked your committee because they were built-in mentors. You don't have that committee anymore. So you need to build that committee of different people. And right, you may have a scientific person, that personal person, that person who's going to help you with whatever career path you've chosen. The next phase here is your career readiness. And this is really, you're preparing to be a competitive candidate. So you're taking any trainings that you want, whether that's through the OITE, or maybe you want to go into tech transfer. So you're taking the transfer courses that are offered by FAES. Again, the committee work and gaining perhaps experiences by volunteering in different offices in order to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into and that you can show on your resume and CV that you are prepared and ready to go. And then ethics is going to be across the board. We still have to think about ethics and responsible conduct of research, but it becomes smaller. It's not as such a big focus of our life. But it's really that every year we have to continue those conversations in those trainings on ethics, RCR, and the rules. Now, as you leave the NIH, yay, right? You leave and you get that first real job. The career readiness changes into making sure that your resume and your CV and your cover letter and your research statement and your teaching statement, all that stuff is ready to go. You're taking care of the wellness. I know for me, when I left my postdoc, that was the most stressful time of my entire life. That moving into that first real job and not really knowing how that job was going to play out, right? Because every other time I went to get grad school, the system made sense. I went to go get a postdoc, the system made sense. I went to get a first real job, the system made no sense. And so that stress was overwhelming at this point. So making sure you have the resources to deal with that stress, as well as this is the point where you and your boss are trying to you're really independent, all the rest of that stuff. You should be writing up your work and presenting your work. You should really have been ready to manage other people at this point and mentor other people and continue those conversations and trainings. It is chaotic. Leaving is chaotic, especially the last couple of months. But it is ways to be successful. So some resources at each one of these phases, these is all hyperlinked. So this is all the wellness offerings. We offer an amazing amount of stuff on wellness, including some really new, really awesome support groups or resilience groups. Like one is on procrastination and one is on stress management, et cetera. And if you'd like to make an appointment for a one-on-one meeting to talk to one of the wellness advisors, this is the email you would use. Our Career Center has talks all the time, either by myself or our career counselors. And so you can come in, as well as a multitude of them that are offered on the OITE website. You can also make an appointment with any one of the career counselors. They're amaze balls, and that's the link to do so. We have writing courses. Most of those are actually offered through FAES now, as well as good English communications courses that you can take. We have that teaching course I suggested, and also how to mentor, how to become a mentor. We have lots of trainings in leadership and management. I talked a little bit about the workplace dynamics. It culminates in a capstone management boot camp that we only ask you to take once you're leaving. And that is to prepare you how to become a manager. So how do you hire people? How do you motivate people? How do you deal with conflict within your groups? And then all the different trainings that you have to do for RCR and rules are also hyperlinked there. When I think about planning for your success, it really is sitting down with your PI, hopefully, and talking about what did you accomplish last year scientifically? What would you like to do next year scientifically? And then the same kind of thing from your career. If you don't feel comfortable talking to your PI about your career, I totally understand that. You can make an appointment with one of our career counselors at any point. Some people make an appointment right in the beginning and kind of map things out. Some people do it in the middle. Some people just do it at the end when they need a mock interview or something like that. But make an appointment with a career counselor if you want to talk to someone else about your career planning. The institutes all have specific forms you have to use for all of these. They're called an individual development plan, or they're called an annual review or something like that. But this is really a chance for you to really think about what did you accomplish last year and what would you like to do over the next year. Because when I think about the postdocs who don't plan and are not successful here and really struggle, here's what I see happen. It's folks who don't use all the available resources. Do you know that you are actually expected to take time for your professional development? 5% of your time is specifically for workplace that is for your development. You should set aside 5% of your time. Lapses in ethics and professionalism. So not paying attention to the rules, not understanding the culture that you're in, the research, the how people interact within your research groups. That's something definitely we've seen people struggle with. So taking advantage of some of those workplace dynamics series and understanding all the responsible conduct of research really helps with this. Honestly, we see most of the lapses in ethics and professionalism at the younger population, the postbacks, but I do like to put it here because every once in a while we get a postdoc who gets stuck in a sticky problem. We know that if you're not in an environment that has really good mentorship, it's really tough. And so this is a good time for you to reach out if you don't feel like you're getting the mentorship that you really want and need. And if you are experiencing harassment or any bullying behavior, we know it's a no-go here at the NIH. So please reach out to us or Civil in order to report that so that we can make sure you're taken care of. And all of you who have gone through our mandatory training know a lot about that harassment and bullying behavior that Sharon or I have talked about. The next thing is how we're going to talk over the next couple of slides. It's not communicating your expectations and not understanding your journey. So what do I mean by that? All of you come from different types of research experiences from your past. And those experiences that you've had in the past map out your current expectations because that's all you know, right? So things such as group dynamics and atmosphere. So if you were in the research group you were here before was super collegial, everybody worked together and everything was awesome. And now you're in an environment that everyone works on their own and no one ever really talks. That expectation has been totally disjointed from this is how you thought science worked, and now this is how science works. And how do you navigate the relationships in each side? The second one is like your boss has a different level of engagement. I was in a tenure tracked person's lab when I was a graduate student, and she was up in our business all day long. As a postdoc, I went to a National Academy member. She wasn't. up in our business all day long. So I had to learn how to balance getting what I needed from Marlene when she wasn't as engaged on a day-to-day basis. And then for my PhD advisor, I had to figure out how to navigate pushing her away and gaining a little bit more independence because she was trying to manage everything so tightly. The other things is, from your last group to this group, how rules are imposed can be really different. And so like what been a very specific rule that you had in your last group isn't even one. I knew a lab once that the postdocs had to write in their notebook with a black pen with what they were planning to do and a blue pen with what they did, right? And so it was different based on, and so people who came into that lab were like, I don't understand this. It doesn't make sense. But that's what I mean by rules and how they're imposed. And also how much feedback you get. What type is it? And how does that feedback influence you? So if you're struggling with any of these, that's normal. And there's lots of resources out there to help you. Just reach out to me. One of the biggest things I'm trying to get across today is I am here for you. My job is to help you while you're here. So never feel like you're bothering me. Never apologize for asking me a question, because my job here is to make sure that you can be successful while you're here at the NIH. And then what do I mean by not understanding the journey? Okay, so what you need changes as you are here at the NIH. When you arrive at the NIH, you are what we call an enthusiastic beginner. This is going to be the best decision you've ever made for your scientific and professional career. You're going to get all these publications. It's just going to be amazing, right? So at this point, your confidence that this is amazing is so high. So your confidence is through the stratosphere. But your competence in doing the work in that particular lab is quite low, right? In your new research group, your competence to do that work is low. And it's not, even if you went from one field to the next in the same field, right? You're staying in the same field of study. It may even be you're going to a collaborator's lab for your postdoc. Your competence is still a little bit low because you're trying to figure out how they do science in that particular research group. But you're excited that this is going to be the best decision you've ever made. You need a lot of direction at this point. You need your boss to sit down and help you plan out your time, your experiments, making sure that you have access to all the resources and ordering that you need, right? Because this enthusiastic beginner phase, it's awesome and it's so exciting. But inevitably, you're going to hit what we call the disillusioned learner phase, okay? So this disillusioned learner phase is coming for those of you who haven't hit it yet. Here, you know what you're doing a little bit more, right? You've got a couple experiments running, you're kind of on track, but your confidence that you're doing a good job is probably lower than when you were an enthusiastic beginner. And it's not that you're failing, it's just that that excitement and that enthusiasm that you had when you arrived is not there anymore. And so you need some support. You need people to support you and say, yes, this is normal. Yes, this didn't work. Let's think about something else. You want to go into this career path. Let's get you support to do that, right? So that disillusioned learner. That support needs to continue into the next one, which is that cautious performer phase, which is you've got variable confidence. Like some days you're like, wah, and other days you're like, oh, right? So like goes back and forth. It's really variable, that cautious performer. And the goal here is to get up to this independence, right? This high achiever phase is the goal here, where, yeah, leave me alone and just let me get my work done. The reason I want to point this out is not only is that this is how you will change while you're here, but when you all left your graduate work to come here and be a postdoc or whatever you did before this, as you left the previous experience and came here, you were likely a high achiever coming back into this enthusiastic beginner phase. So when this disillusioned learner phase hits, it can be really a struggle to get past it because you just kind of forgot that this was coming. So know that this disillusioned learner phase and cautious performer phase are out there, and find the support you need to be successful. Find the community you need, right? So it's not just support scientifically, professionally, but it's also that community that you will build. And I have a couple of thoughts. Working out, if it's really a struggle, okay, so if the conflict between you and a colleague or you and your PI is just not working, please seek out advice on how to resolve the conflict. I will more than happily talk to you about that conflict because I don't want you to struggle. There's usually ways for us to navigate the conversations and the relationships in lots of different ways. So you can come talk to me through the OITE. And come to the Workplace Dynamics series, and I saw that somebody asked me to post that. I will after I finish talking. The Ombuds or the Center for Conflict Resolution at the NIH, I should have hyperlinked it, I'm sorry, is a great resource to kind of talk through confidentially about different conflicts that you're having. And then the institutes, all your institutes also have training directors or scientific directors, branch chiefs, etc. All these people are phenomenal people to reach out to kind of talk through and get advice on how to resolve the conflicts that are happening, that are making you not feel successful. Like, we all want you to be successful. And I have a couple, as I kind of wrap up the talk here, and you guys can start popping in questions. I have a couple of pandemic ponderings, things that I've seen happen over the pandemic that make me go, Luckily, I'm really happy that most of you who are within wet lab places are finally getting 100% capacity coming back soon. Oh boy, does that make me thrilled. But for all of us who still aren't 100% back in person, the lack of scientific interactions and infrequent meeting, like what we would typically call water cooler talks, or the conversations that you have on the way to seminar with somebody just in the hallway, we need to find ways to replicate those. My husband and I were just talking about this. His lab is going through their BSc review right now. And this, during telework, was obvious that this lack of casual scientific interactions is really tough. So find ways within your research groups to just have pop-in coffees that you're going to talk about science, or as you go back into the physical workspace, remember that everyone's going to have to renegotiate all these relationships that they've just had over Zoom. So it could be a little bit difficult as we kind of come in. And then the social interactions, making sure that you're having social events within your research group, taking care of wellness activities as a whole, and building your community. I want you, again, this is my email right here, so you can email me at any time. I really want you guys to be successful here. And I hope this kind of broke it up a little bit into ways that you can think about how to be successful while you're here. And I would love to take some questions. What's the most common cause of conflict in the lab environment? There's a whole bunch of them. Usually it's people who are talking across each other. What I mean by that is, like, there's not good communication. So either the postdoc or the PI is not hearing or listening to what's being said. So it's usually that maybe it's a communication barrier, a culture barrier, the way things are said. It's not clear enough. Like, what one person thinks is clear is not what somebody else thinks is clear. It's not specific enough, or it's too specific. I think that's the biggest thing we see, is it's the communication problems. And if you want to find the Workplace Dynamics series, just go to our website. And oh no, I didn't want to go there. I will post our website in the chat so that you can go to upcoming events. And they're all listed under the upcoming events tab of our website. Well, I hope this is what you guys were looking for. And if it's not, just send me an email and let me know, because I will share the recording when it's done. It's going to take about 2 or 3 days to fully get the recording into YouTube and closed captioned, because that's the other cool thing, is that it'll have a transcript along the bottom. So that's usually very much people like it. So it'll be a couple of days. When is it too late to pivot on career goals? And again, if you guys want to leave, if you're done, it's perfectly fine if you go. It'd be a troublesome situation at the beginning phase, end phase, because you need to change targets. It's never too late to change your career goal. You can do it at the beginning of your time or at the end of your time. I've seen postdocs be really successful even in the last year. I think the difference is, Eric, is that if you're thinking about a career change in your last year, we're probably going to have to sit down and strategize really clearly about what you need in order to be a competitive candidate for whatever you're switching into. It's totally doable though. Even if you have 6 months, you can still make a different decision. But your timeline for what you're going to have to do in those 6 months is going to be very accelerated than if we had the strategy. A lot of times what people will do is kind of, especially as first year postdocs, second year postdocs, they'll have 2 parallel lines. I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking about this. And they'll kind of do both a little bit in parallel. I hope that helps. Luisa Georgiana says, please send, she's just started, she's actually starting in October and she'd love to connect with other people. So if any of you guys, you're still in Europe, right? You're still, or are you here yet?
Yes, I'm still in London.
She's still in London. So she'd love to kind of talk and build her community. So if anybody wants to hang out, just go ahead and email her directly.
Thank you, Laurie. Can I address one more question? Sorry,
sure.
I have loads of them. I guess I understand most people are within 5 years from graduation, but let's say, maybe some people did something before their undergrad and so on. What do you advise, in terms of for people who've already had a job before and, they've been managerial?
Yeah, it's all exactly the same. And it really will depend on what you want to do next. So if you want to be a faculty member, the fact that you've done a job before doesn't really matter. You still have to put in your time and get enough papers out to be a competitive applicant. If you wanted to go to industry, you may want to leave in year 2 because it's perfectly fine time to leave in year 2. So I think it really depends on what you want to do next, on how I would answer that. But for the most part, you're not going to be able to speed up anything above and beyond what someone who's coming from directly from graduate school into their postdoc. I think if you had done graduate school, a postdoc someplace else, and now this is your second postdoc, the second postdoc may be much more, here your time at the NIH could be shorter, but it really depends on what you want to do next and how competitive of an applicant you made yourself in that first postdoc.
Thank
Hi.
you. Makes sense.
Hi.
Thank you for the presentation. Can you tell me about the take-home message? Something take-home message.
Take-home message is plan. Plan. Don't just wait to the last minute. I don't see that happening very much. When I first arrived at the NIH as a postdoc, running the postdoc office, I would have people come into my office and say, I've got 6 months left and I don't know what I want to do next. That doesn't happen very much because you guys are doing much better job of planning than my generation ever did. But there's never enough. You can always talk more and use the resources around you, right? So whatever that is, whether that's coming to talk to a career counselor or me or somebody else, plan ahead so that you know how to slot everything in every area of the postdoc that you're coming through. Yeah, so much is going on and struggling to prioritize. That's why I kind of hoped that the way I kind of broke it out is you can think about the scientist teaching science. If you're a first year, you're even a second year, you don't need to do that. In fact, if you're not going to be a faculty member, you don't need scientists teaching science or something like that, but it's something you do. So in the middle times is where you kind of think about that as leadership and management. And in the beginning, it's really getting your science. Again, I am more than happy to walk through and strategize with anyone who gives me an email about how to, I get all these things. How do I plan them out? I want to do this one. When should I do it? Call me. Well, not call, we don't actually do telephone anymore, right? But email me and we'll plan it out. Because I agree with you, there's so much. And sometimes it can be really a struggle. And then it's too overwhelming, so I'm not going to do anything. So, you might want to think about, as in this next 6 months, you want to make sure that you're prepared to give a presentation. And then the next 6 months, you are prepared to mentor a summer intern that perhaps could be coming next summer. There's ways to strategize individually for each person.
Okay, is it necessary to join a STS course in the first year of the postdoc fellow?
Nope, I would say no. I would say don't join it as a first year postdoc. I would join it as a second or third year when your research is already going.
Okay. So I thought if we register this one, we may, get experience in the teaching, then we can explore it like that. So, okay.
I think it would depend, like, it's not going to hurt. And if you feel like your science is up and ready to go, there's no hurt to taking it now. Yeah. But it happens every spring and every fall. So if you don't take this one, it's every fall and every spring. So you'll hit the next one real quick.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Grace says she's a postdoc on a 2-year program and meant to achieve what a 5-year postdoc does. That's a tough one. So I think one of the things would be is then you really need a good map. What do you want to get done, and how would you finish that up? And then at the end of that 2 years, really what is reasonable for you to be able to do next? And how could you make sure you have all the experiences to do whatever it is that's next? But Grace, yeah, you do have with that timeline that's squished, you have to be really, really strategic about what you do and when. I don't see anything else coming in. I am going to let you guys all go. I really enjoyed giving the talk. So again, if there's something that was missing, just email me. I'll email you the slides and the recording in a couple of days. Okay. Thank you all for coming. Happy Postdoc Appreciation Week. And I hope that all of you take advantage of all the other wonderful things that are happening. Remember that in the second slide, there's a link to how all the things that are happening this week. Okay. So take care. Bye, everybody.